Hi everybody, it's Russ from My Hammers 11. I hope you're all safe and well. Obviously, use your channel. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you're made aware of any time we put new content on. Obviously, we have videos going up daily, particularly while we're still all working from home and lockdown and stuff. But sometimes 2 to 3 videos a day, and every one of them is a belter. Every one of them is people are taking the time out to record and talk about their memories and the players that are important to them. So make sure you hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of the content. Got some great guests coming up. I know I always say that, but it's true. It's like a conveyor belt, and lots of great fans and YouTubers and things like that. So obviously we've got Stelios Kyriacou, who is from the Hammers United sort of group of YouTubers. How are you, Stelios?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you. Yeah, like you, very busy trying to fit everything in, but absolutely delighted to be on this show. It's a cracking show. So.
Thank you. We do try. I'm trying. Yeah, it's good. And it's weird because I was talking to someone the other day and he was like, "Oh, what's next? What's next for My Hammers 11 content wise?" It's like, oh, I'm just carrying chatting to people about West Ham.
Exactly.
Sort of does what it says in the tin. You know what I mean? So it's like, no, it's going great. I think you're probably around our 70th or something like that guest we've had on, which is mental really when I first thought of it, and sort of I thought I'd be crazy to get even like 30 or 40, and then it's just like,
have you got a target? Have you got an overall target to achieve?
Yes, and it might take a few years. 500 is my target.
Oh wow!
So there's 60,000 people every game, and so we should get 500 then. But 500 eventually. So it'll take a few years, but it is the idea is to mirror a survey I saw the club did in 2003, where they had 500 fans. So I'd like to get around there, and obviously, a few more, a few less, but we'll keep plugging away, and obviously, until recently, we haven't had anything live to talk about or moan about, so we've only got a few more days.
That's coming up soon.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming up soon, and we'll see what happens. But at least it gives people a chance to think back and look at stuff and look at memories and sort of document them really, because for maybe a lot of the older fans, the more experienced fans, they might not be around in 20, 30 years time, so YouTube will hopefully still be around. So we'll have all these memories in place. So for you still, obviously, the format of the channel we talked to you about. It's the best Zoom call you have all day, basically, to be fair.
Absolutely.
So for you still, where did it all start for you, your West Ham sort of? Why West Ham?
Well, interesting, because I've seen quite a lot of the interviews you've done, and most of the people are from that area.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't quite the same thing. I'm, being Greek, born and raised in North London. My old man used to take me to Arsenal. Hated it, and I wanted to support a team of my own. And, I had cousins who were Arsenal fans and Spurs fans, all trying to persuade me to support one of those clubs. But I just wanted a club of my own. And when I was a kid, and I know it sounds really daft, but when I was a kid, I used to get these annuals, Shoot magazine and stuff like that. And I remember reading about West Ham and about Spurs at the time, and about their exploits in Europe in the 60s. I just thought, well, West Ham sounded interesting. And then it talked about, the 3 players that were in the World Cup final, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, that sounds good. I didn't even know where West Ham was. Living in North London, I didn't know how to get there or anything. And I thought, right, it'll be a team. That's the team I'm going to follow. And my first memory, I convinced myself that I went to a midweek European game at the age of 14. I'm sure I didn't, but I remember going to a midweek game at the age of 14, sneaked out of home because my mum wouldn't let me go. And it was around 76. We were in the Cup Winners' Cup, and I went there, and I just remember the atmosphere, and I just remember sort of being taken in by what was around me. Hardly saw any of the game because I'm not a tall lad. And I just remember thinking, that's it. That was the bug. And ever since then, and it's a weird one because, I feel almost embarrassed because a lot of the guys that you've spoken to have gone, I've been born in the area, raised in the area, etc. But I didn't have that. I just knew I wanted a team of my own, and wasn't for the glory.
No, certainly weren't. That certainly weren't, yeah.
And that was it. So, from very early age, 14, went to my first game and I just fell in love with it. Yeah. I just remember the crowd. I just remember the atmosphere and the buzz of the Boleyn.
Exactly. Yeah. And that, I mean, we do see that more and more now because we've interviewed a lot of people, a lot of more experienced fans, and they tend to be around the area. But I mean, a lot of the sort of the American Hammers and the Scandinavian Hammers and people like that, similar. They picked a team, and West Ham was their team, and they became fanatical about it. And that's what I really enjoy, is like how fanatical they are, and because there's no geographical link to them, so it's all. It's not like they were made to be a West Ham fan. And I think a lot of people have been made to be a West Ham fan, and have since had to go on that journey.
It's when a lot of fans, especially from abroad, when they, when you often hear what teams they support, they talk about Man U or Liverpool or Arsenal or whatever, and then when you find someone from overseas or whatever that is a West Ham fan, you just think, and you do ask them the question, why? And they kind of give you the similar answer. Well, look at the club and look at the history and look at the the atmosphere and stuff like that. And you can see what we see. That they are. Once you sort of get that bug of West Ham, it stays with you. Why support any other team? So
no, you're right, and you're right. It's a bug. And it's not. Football is very much second to being a West Ham fan, to be honest. It is about the sense of community, and as you said, like the atmosphere, and particularly in the old ground, obviously Green Street and the tightness of the ground, and and the people and the friends you've met, and particularly yourself, obviously, coming from North London, probably a lot of the people you end up becoming friends with weren't from North London, because they're from people you saw at the ground and stuff, and that's what's basically come out. It's been a thread through the whole of this, all of the videos, is that particularly the fan ones, and sometimes the player ones, because they might be people like Cotty, who are like boyhood fans and stuff. It's that theme of sort of togetherness and family, which is lovely, and I hope it becomes more of a thing. I don't think I've said it before, I don't think our fans are as split compared to other fan bases. Really, like Arsenal fan TV and stuff is hilarious, isn't it? And there's division there. But it has been a bit fractious, and I think it's about getting everyone back together again, and sort of what we're trying to do here, and it's just trying to be positive about
it's
being
trying to also maintain that community, I think, because I think a lot of that has been, a lot of fans are saying that's been lost since we moved ground. Since the Boleyn days, that sense of community seems to be a bit sort of a bit that fragmented, and I think things like this, things like what you're doing, and all the sort of the the fans that do all the YouTube channels or the podcasts, etc. It's trying to bring all that back together and trying to maintain that sense of community, because that's what West Ham fans sort of know. That's what we sort of, because as you said, it's sometimes not about the football. I mean, the football's been tragic at times, and but we carry on supporting, because I go to a game, go to the supporters club, meet people there. It's people it's people you're familiar with. You've got a good rapport with them, and even after a game, if we've lost, we sort of go back to the supporters club and we still have a drink and a chat and a laugh, and that's what West Ham's really about. And you're absolutely right. When you look at sort of like Arsenal fan TV, etc., and they go into some sort of frenzy, even when they win, they go into a frenzy. It's we all have our moans, of course we do, but it's about that sense of community with West Ham, and that's what we should maintain.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And it's you're totally right. And as I said, doing the channel, talking to fans, they're keeping that sense of community going by, as I said on Saturday, I've been invited to a couple of Zoom watch along parties. I might have to try and join into a couple of them when I'm at the ground, but it's lovely, and and it's, he said, it is that community sort of spirit, and it is that sense of togetherness, which probably every club has, but it seems West Ham has more. It
feels like it. Yeah, absolutely, it does. Yeah.
And again, it's where it came from. I think because it's where it came from. There's a lot of experienced fans who were around that area, who did live around the corner, and a lot of players who live around the corner, that sort of 60s, 70s era as well. So there was that sort of sense of togetherness and stuff. And so, from you, so obviously from sort of, mid 70s onwards, there must be some highlights, some sort of things which stick out in your mind as key
Yeah,
West Ham
I mean,
moments for you.
I'm lucky enough. I didn't go to the games, but I'm lucky enough to see the '75 Cup final.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to have seen the '80 Cup final. I've seen us win something, and
I've seen us win the Intertoto Cup, Stelios, so there you go.
And also the near misses as well. I think what was it, '81 the League Cup
Yeah.
final, and '86 the FA Cup final and stuff like that. So there's a lot of. I mean, I've got good memories. I'm lucky enough to be old
Yes.
enough to remember it that far back. And '75. I mean, come on. It was. Yeah, everyone says, well, it was against a second division team, but it doesn't matter. You're in a cup final,
Yeah.
and to win, and it's really exciting. I was 13 at the time when we won the FA Cup, and it was just an amazing experience to see. So that stuck out in my mind, But then there's some bad times, the times we got relegated, and that when we got relegated, God, what was the year when we got relegated with probably one of our best teams ever, with the likes of Joe Cole, Rio Ferdinand, and stuff like that. That sticks in your memory as well. And you sort of sit and wonder, how did that ever happen? When you had almost what was to be, what was it, a third of the England squad playing for us, and stuff like that. And things like that stick in your mind as well. And but I think probably it's been said by a lot of people that my greatest memory has got to be the last game at the Bowling.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to go there. Go in there on the day, got there early. My daughter was with me. She was 13, 14 at the time. And we had a real rigmarole of getting tickets. I had a ticket, but I had to get a ticket for her. And then we had to swap tickets with other people in order to sit on the same place. And I just remember when we finally got in there, we were lucky enough to be sitting where all the players were.
Yeah.
So we saw Trevor Sinclair and Gabidon and a few others sort of all sitting up in the top West Stand, the West Stand corner.
Top one, yeah.
And that was probably my greatest memory. I mean, very tearful, very just the whole day, spending it with friends in advance, and then seeing the game, and of course the result as well. I mean, there was icing on the cake. So I've been lucky. I've been really lucky. I've seen some real downs, but I've seen some real ups. Cup finals, last game at the Bowling, etc. It's been a whirlwind of a journey, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. Do you know?
It isn't. Well, we'll soon find out on Saturday.
That's what we love. Yeah. I'm all confident. I was on the West We Are West Ham podcast the other day, and I put us down for a 2-0 win. That's literally me every game, though. I come in. What's the result? We got 2-0. Always 2-0. It's my stock. It's almost like Tourette's, 2-0. It's like, okay, for us again. But we'll see. It's going to be different. It's going to be weird. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be a bit strange. I think it's going to be strange for the players as well, because we're still, in essence, we're still treating it like a match day. So there'll still be, music and things like that as well.
Yeah.
Too weird, but it still will be weird. But we'll see, and hopefully I'll try and shoot a little bit from within the compound over the next when I'm back in there. So that'd be quite interesting. No one else will have that, so exclusive content. Although I noticed Carlton was doing some stuff on Instagram from inside the ground as well, but he's a little bit more famous than me, so I allow that one. Right, so what we'll do is we do this Hammers 11 thing, as you know. Stelios. So it's about 11, 4-4-2 if we can. You have to be alive to have seen them play. As mid-70s onwards, you've got quite a good spread there. And it's your 11, so you can do whatever you want with it, basically.
Cool.
It's nice and simple. So who will go in goal for the Stelios 11?
Well, the goalkeeper I've got is, because it was my first memory of West Ham, is Mervyn Day.
Yep.
It was when I started to support the club. He was like a bit of an icon for me, back then. I mean, I'm talking the 70s, hippie hairstyles and all that sort of stuff. And I remember him playing for West Ham, and just remembering just how, 19 years of age, youngest goalkeeper in the FA Cup final, and just the the way he went about his goalkeeping, he wasn't our best goalkeeper. We've had brilliant goalkeepers, Phil Parks and Miklosko and stuff like that. But for me, you know, for a lad at that age, so confident to be, you know, to be in goal. And he was my real sort of one of my first memories of West Ham. So because of that, I'm going with Mervyn Day.
Yeah. Good shout. Yeah. I think I'm sorry. I've got my spreadsheet up as we speak. Let me have a quick look. Mervyn Day, is that the first? No. It's not the first time he's come up. There we go. I didn't think it was. But yes, as you said, Mervyn Day, good shout. And I think it was it. Someone said as soon as he got married, he got shit. I can't remember who it was, but someone.
Well, he just had so much potential, and it did go wrong for him. It really did, and I think injuries maybe played a part in that. But you know, for me, I mean, he should have been maybe an England player. But I mean, we had some great goalies in the 70s. You know, even Phil Parks couldn't get in the England team, let alone Mervyn Day. So. But it did go a bit sour for him. But as I said, he wasn't the greatest goalie we had. No, exactly. But he certainly, you know, he certainly
made an impact on you, and that's the idea. It's about making impact and impression on yourself. Okay, I'll put Mervyn in. Let's go left back. Then Stelios, who's left back for you, man?
I struggled with this one because I would have said Frank Lampard Senior, but I didn't really, you know, sort of. But it's got to be Julian Dix, you know, and I know that sounds a bit cliche, but you know, it's got to be him. What was it, over 260 appearances for the club, you know, and apart from that little blip when he went to Liverpool for whatever reason, but he came back home.
He came back. That's what mattered.
And he was a hard man. I think you'll find with all my defenders, they're just hard men. You know, sort of proper passionate players, and Dix was, you know, I mean, he played football with a swagger, didn't he? He was like, you know, for a defender, you know, and that left foot of his, you know, it had to be him. Had to be Julian Dix.
And it's funny because obviously we have a, you know, this sort of, we put these players on like pedestals, like someone like Julian, and very much so, you know, across the series so far, and will continue to be definitely. And then when you listen to the way the players talk about him, it's really funny, and like, you know, you've got watching him, but what they say about him in training and stuff like that, absolutely brilliant. And you get that feeling. He didn't train, you know, he just like came, he didn't warm up. You know, as like, you know, Breaker and Butler, you know, they had to warm up for like half an hour stretch. He'd just come out lamping balls. Then he'd have a you know, can of Coke and a Mars bar and start playing. It's like amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. And it's true, you know, we always think, you know, because the way he's slow, but he actually trained that way, and the way, you know, it's actually brilliant. Right, we'll put Jules in. Let's go right back then. Who we got right back?
Well, this one's a bit left field. I don't know if you've had this one yet. Thomas Repka.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, Repka, Repka, brilliant player.
I mean, you know, what a debut he made for West Ham, being sent off in his first game.
Happened quite a lot that period, didn't it? Marco Dugas as well.
Can you imagine Repka playing in today's game? No. You know, he'd never play. He'd always be red carded. But you know, again, for me, it's purely because of his passion. I mean, I know we as fans took a while to get used to him. And maybe he took a while to get used to West Ham, but when he left, you know, last game for us in tears, and you wouldn't imagine a hard man like that to sort of like be passionate. And we talk an awful lot these days about foreign players not being passionate enough for the teams that they play for. But then you look at someone like Repka, and he took West Ham to his heart. And I think for that, you know, you've got to admire the player. I mean, again, not the best right back we've had. Breaker was better, and various others were better. But he just had an impact on me. Just, you know, because you almost laugh and you go, "Is Thomas going to survive the game today, or is he going to be sent off?" Ironically, he was only ever sent off 4 times, but it felt like he was sent off almost every other week.
It's so true.
But yeah, for me, Repka. just for his passion again.
And you know, he was a character, and he's even more a character since he retired from football.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Graham Howlett's one in Needs at My Brown. He did one around the locked down 11, and it was all ones in trouble with the law. And obviously Thomas Repke basically gave his rap sheet after he joined. It's like brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But again, he sort of epitomised that West Ham era. It was the like that Harry Redknapp era around there was the craziest period.
Yeah,
but it was, for me, the most enjoyable period, because again, you didn't know if Repka was going to play 90 minutes. You didn't know if Paolo was going to score a worldie or have a strop. There was so much. It wasn't like a. It's quite formulaic, football is now, isn't it?
It is.
You know, there's no excitement really. You know that Liverpool are at the moment. Liverpool were going to win. How many goals they're going to score, basically. And before that, City were going to win. How many goals are they going to score? You don't get that craziness anymore, which I think is.
And it was crazy back then, and Repka epitomised that. I think.
Exactly.
And you're absolutely right. We had quite a few. Yeah, we had quite a few players that were quite similar that back then. It's surprising we held it together at all.
Yeah, exactly. But you look at the craziness, and you think, oh God, we were so like up and down crazies, and so many players going in. I was just doing some research, looking at some of the seasons, and obviously the Redknapp era, we were like 8th, 5th. We were, arguably it was our best in Premier League finishing place, obviously not the top flight, but best Premier League, and we'd won the Intertoto Cup, first time in Europe since 1980. And
exactly. But the absolute irony, when we finished 5th and we were banned from Europe, that was like that's typical.
It's typical West Ham
for us.
Typical West Ham. Right, okay, we'll put Tommy in. He goes right back. First centre back, then Stelios.
Well, I originally had him in midfield, but in order to accommodate all the attacking midfielders I've got, I put him as a centre back. It's Billy Bonds.
Yeah.
It's really funny because I messaged you, I think last week, and I said I'm struggling with defenders because it's like I've had all these attacking players that I wanted to put in, and I thought, no, I can't do this. I can't. It's ridiculous to actually have a really unbalanced team. So sure. I put Bonzi in as centre back to accommodate more attacking players at the in front of him. And when you watch Billy Bonds play, another passionate player.
Yeah.
It's and a hard man, but passionate, and he loved the way he played football. We loved the way we saw him play football, and he was a proper leader. And we talk about Mark Noble being Mr. West Ham now, but that's what Billy Bonds was back then. He was Mr. West Ham, and he lifted 2 FA Cups. I mean, when are we ever going to see that again from a West Ham captain? So it had to be, Billy Bonds had to go in the back there.
Exactly, and obviously now, rightly so, has his stand named after him now. So
absolutely,
totally deserving. Totally agreed that happened. Right, okay, we'll put Bonzo in. Who's Bonzo going to partner in the centre back position?
James Collins. Now again, he looked like an old-fashioned defender in the modern game. Because. With Collins, it was like, he survived because he keeps putting his head into places that he shouldn't do. And in the last few years, you kind of think about the West Ham players that have played for us, and you try to pinpoint players that you think really stood out amongst others. And we've had some decent defenders. So I was thinking about Winston Reid. I was thinking about Gabidon. I was thinking about but Collins, for me, again, just epitomised that sort of passion. And it's really interesting because when we sold Collins to Villa, we struggled, and then we went down, and then we came back up and had Collins back in the team. And I always sort of wondered back then, would we have not gone down had Collins stayed with us rather than going off to Villa? And for me, I think he just he was, again, not the best defender, but just a passionate defender. And Collins for me would go. So you could see all our defenders are just like tough nuts, and then that allows all the attacking midfielders to go and do the flair.
We'll put GP in. Yeah, no, I agree. He's. I think. Yeah, you're right. He had this sort of, and I think even more so his second spell. He came back and had. he just seemed to have just the adoration of the fans, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he loved them and they loved him. And
Absolutely.
yeah, no, great shout. We'll put Collins in. Okie dokie. Collins and Bonds up in the mid centre backs. Let's go left midfield then. Who we got left midfield then, Stelios?
Well, people are going to hate me for this, but it's got to be Payet.
Yep.
You know, I know how it all ended and stuff like that, but that last season at the Boleyn, I mean, he gave us so many memories, you know, and you can't take that away from him.
No.
And ironically, even when, you know, even in the beginning of the following season, until he left, he still gave us a few memories then.
Oh, yeah.
But that season at the Boleyn, you know, if it wasn't for Dimitri Payet, we wouldn't have had a season as great, as memorable as it was. And I know how a lot of fans are really upset with him, and it was very upsetting that he left the way he did. And I know he came out recently and said about, you know, not being challenged enough and stuff like that. But, you know, it's funny because, as I said to you earlier, I was thankfully, I was lucky enough to be at the Boleyn for that last season, and I was taking my daughter a lot. You know, she's given up football now. You know, being 18, they go on to other things. But and I remember her, you know, going, "So who's playing, Dad?" And I'm saying, "Oh well, Collins is playing or Payet's playing." "Oh yeah, he's the good one, isn't he?" You know, it's like everyone recognised just what a talent he was. And he was so entertaining and driven and. It's such a shame we didn't build around him. It's such a shame. You know, whether he'd stayed or not, I don't know. If we'd have invested better in the following season, would he have stayed? Who knows? But that year, just for that one season, what he gave us was just you know, unforgettable.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There's not many players who have made such an impact in such a little time. That's basically it. You know, he did. He was, and you're right. Just, you know, he should, just for the memories of that last season, he should be in, you know, because he did, you know, for the modern fan, so to speak, he's still the best, you know, probably for a long time, the best player technically I've ever seen in the West Ham shirt.
Yeah.
And you're right. You know, and it's he brought, you know, someone said the other day, it's like it's not very often that we've had a player who is the player in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? He was like that season, he was Dimitri Payet was the player. You know,
exactly. And we were lucky to have him.
We were privileged. We were very privileged to have him. That's a fact. Right, okay, we'll put Dimmy in left midfield. Let's go right midfield. Then Stelios, who have you got right midfield?
Well, a player who I think was probably on par with him technically is Alan Devonshire.
Yeah.
And again, you know, being a kid, you know, watching West Ham then, and I mean, I'm still undecided who's my all-time favourite West Ham player. You know, and it's either Devonshire or Brooking, and Devonshire was just. I mean, if Devonshire was playing in today's game, he'd be a 50-60 million pound player, I reckon. You know, and if you think about, you know, I've sort of given away who else is in my team, but you think about someone like Devonshire playing on today's surface, what he could do. You know, he was playing on boggy pitches, and he was still a master at what he did. You know, his deft touch, you know, the way he passed the ball, very equally weighted passes to the attacking strikers, etc. And he was a pleasure, you know, as a kid, again, you know, as a youngster going to watch West Ham and seeing him play was just an absolute delight. You could see he was a class above most other players of that time, and Devonshire, without a doubt.
Yeah, exactly, and it's true, and you know, and obviously, you know, having to reinvent himself as a player, you know, after the injury, you know, it was two players really. It was complete, and no one does that anymore. You know, once you know, you look at Michael Owen, you know, where, you know, Devonshire was pacey in the, you know, before the injury, and with blistering pace, you know, and then he got injured and had to become arguably more technical and more skillful, you know, to you look at someone like Michael Owen.
Game.
Yeah, exactly, and that's, you don't get that anymore now. You don't get that anymore. You know, people are known for one thing. So, I'll put Dev in. Okie dokie. Midfield, Trevor Brooking.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, you know, as I've said, you know, it's between him and Devonshire as to who's my all-time favourite. But you know, the memory. You know, he scored the FA Cup winning goal. If only for that and nothing else. else. You could say that that's why he's in my team. But another player in today's day and age, he was another modern player in years gone by.
Yeah.
And he would have, again, if he'd been playing today, again, he would be sought after by God knows how many teams around.
Yeah.
And graceful. It's funny because in preparation, I sort of reminded myself of a few clips of the past, and the Cup Winners' Cup semi-final when he scored a brace, and the way he took his first, his first goal was ahead of his second goal, where just the ball came to him and he slipped past the defender and just tucked it in the corner. I mean, graceful, absolutely graceful, and just a fantastic player and a great ambassador for West Ham as well. Yeah, definitely into.
So Trev, definitely we'll put him in. Okay, Trev and Dev. Okay, let's go. Who's the last place in midfield going to?
I wanted to put Pat Holland in, but then there were too many wide players, and then it was a toss-up between Scott Parker and Mark Noble, and I've gone for Noble. Now, if you ever watch any of my reviews on Irons United on YouTube, I often give him a hell of a lot of stick, but that's because we expect a lot of him, and he's got a hell of a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, and we know he's coming to the end of his career, but I think Noble, for his longevity, he could have gone to other clubs. I think, what was it, several years back, I think, was it Stoke that we were in for him? And he stayed because he's a West Ham through and through. And how many players do you get these days that are West Ham through and through? In fact, some of the other players I've mentioned, Brooking was West Ham through and through, but that's a bygone era, so you don't get that anymore.
No.
And you've got to respect Noble for absolute passion that he has for the club, and again, he's not necessarily the best player we've ever had, but he's heart and soul for West Ham, and he's carried the team at times. And like I say, I do give him. I know a lot of my mates that will be watching this will be laughing, going, "You picked Noble, but you keep giving him stick," and I do, but that's because I expect so much of him. And but he's another great ambassador for West Ham United, and I hope when he does, hang his boots up, he has a role in the future with the club. Whether it be training the under-23s or whatever it might be. But they're the sort of players or characters that we need to keep at West Ham when their careers are over.
Definitely.
So there you go, everyone. Yeah, Mark Noble.
But I mean, as you said, he's basically, but when he retires, I don't think he'll be able to leave the club more often than so. I think, I know that when I interviewed Kevin Keane, I asked him about Mark as being a coach, and he was like, he's a really good coach. For the kids, he's brilliant. I keep telling him, but he's concentrating on playing at the moment. So. And there is a raft of sort of old players, isn't there? Sort of come into the setup recently. Obviously, you've got Potsy 23s, right. You've got Kev the 18s, you've got Colton, you've got Zabon, you've got Conch. So there does seem to be this sort of wave to get more West Ham, ex-West Ham boys in the staff. Obviously Kevin Nolan,
and
obviously,
rightly so.
Yeah.
Because it brings back, like we said earlier, about the whole community thing, about the whole spirit of West Ham. It maintains it. I mean, we were a club who were always promoting from within in terms of managers, Ron Greenwood, John Lyle, etc., Billy Bonds, and so on. And then we kind of lost our way then, didn't we? After that, we had Macari, come in to manage us, and a few other. Yeah, we've had some relative successes. Pardew was a success, I think, but we've had some, and people have often said in the past, well, that's because they're not West Ham and they don't understand West Ham, and there might be an element of truth in that, for some of the players or managers that we've had. So I do hope Noble stays with us in some capacity.
Yeah, me too. Right, we'll put Mark in. Okie dokie. Let's go up front then, Stelios. Who's your first striker?
Another one from the past, and again, more for sentimental reasons rather than anything else, is Clyde Best.
Yeah.
What was he? Our second black player. Well, he was the first black player I remember playing for West Ham. And it couldn't have been easy for a player like that coming into playing for playing in England.
Yeah.
You know, the racism that was going on in the 70s was absolutely rife, and you
Mm.
know, and Best used to get it from all angles. And
Yeah.
but he was a very well, not the greatest striker we've ever had, but a decent player, you know, a solid player, someone that you want to,
Yeah.
you know, push the defenders around up front. And
Mm.
I remember the way he played. He was, you know, not the greatest of touches, not the greatest of goal scorers, but a brute force up front. And
Mm.
yeah, purely for sentimental reasons, Clyde Best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, you reckon? I know what you mean. That sort of battering ram, sort of striker, sort of as again been lost in the game. Really, I mean, you
Yeah.
think Drogba, probably the last one I can really think of, who's, you know, who was a bat. I mean, he would just batter the you know. I mean, Halak, you know, he's big enough, but he doesn't. But he's more of a.
He's too slight.
He's more like,
Isn't
yeah,
he?
likes to drop off, doesn't he? Likes to,
Yeah.
you know, he likes. But no, yeah, no, Clyde Best, and I can't remember, I think it was Jackie Hughes or something like that, when she interviewing her, she said that you could hear him like running, because it was like she was on the, you know, if you was in the chicken run or the west, you could hear it was like thump. It was like a horse galloping. It was so like
He was heavy.
powerful. Yeah, such a
Yeah.
powerful, not heavy. He was such a powerful man,
Powerful.
Steady.
That's what I
People
meant.
aren't old, they're experienced, and people aren't heavy, they're powerful. That's
They're
been my
powerful.
excuse. I'm not heavy. I'm just
I'm
powerful.
powerful.
I'm powerful. That's the thing. Right. Okay. Who's Clive gonna partner up front then?
Well, there could only be one other striker for me in my era, is Paolo. You know, a maverick, a lunatic, a madman, but an absolute genius.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I think, you know, it's really ironic. One of my best memories of him was when he caught the ball against
Everton. Yeah.
You know, and just that show, that you know, I mean, I remember Redknapp was interviewed afterwards and going, "What was he doing? We needed to score a goal and stuff like that," and he just caught the blood. And that was, only someone like Di Canio could do that. You know, like, but I mean, the memories he gave us again. You know, unfortunately, I wasn't there when he scored that fantastic goal against Wimbledon. I would have loved to have seen that live. But he scored some memorable goals against Chelsea, against Arsenal, and, you know, teams like that. And just the whole way he played, another player with passion. Again, you know, I think what he loved about us is that we gave him a chance after everything that happened, and he paid us back in, you know, in abundance. And just a fantastic character, a fantastic player, and you've got to put him in your team, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to. And you're right, he was like, you know, we say it quite often, but he was, you know, he was box office, wasn't he? Again, part of that crazy era, but he was just, he made you, he was one of the several players there who just made you, you go to the game with a smile on your face because you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Some people said recently, you know, there was one guy I interviewed and he said, "Oh, West Ham's last couple of seasons have been like a chore, but obviously it's a chore he wanted to do again and wants to get back." But I know what he means, you know, and I think it's football in general. Again, it's like, I don't know, I've just sort of, this whole sort of period has sort of made me reevaluate where we are with football, and I just think it's an entertainment. You know, it's a sport and it's a professional sport and people earn a lot of money, but, you know, we want to be entertained, don't we, as fans?
Absolutely.
And it's not about winning for us.
Yeah, and that's what it's always been about with West Ham. You know, what we love, I mean, every West Ham fan will say the same thing. What we love is a player that will give his all, even if we lose. We just love players that would just wear the shirt with pride. And I know that sounds a bit cliched, but, you know, it doesn't matter if we get battered. If those players out on the pitch have actually put their effort in and we get battered, we'll applaud them because we've gone, right, it just wasn't our day.
Yeah, you're right.
It's when we lose, and we lose in a really sort of, you know, dour way, and you feel that the players haven't actually given any oomph in their efforts. That's when we get upset. Because, I mean, there've been games I'm sure you and I have been at where we've won and we've gone, God, we were just like, you know, we shouldn't have won that, should we? You know, we just like, we're lucky or whatever. And yet there have been games where we've been battered and we've gone, well done, lads. you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the irony. That's what West Ham's about. You know, it's about. Of course, we want to win. Everyone wants to win, but it's about the passion. It's about the players showing passion, and players like Di Canio, you know, showed it with abundance, didn't he?
Yeah, no, you're right, and I mean, that's when you look at the current squad. You know, I look at you know, in terms of the positives of the current squad. You know, bringing in someone like Bowen. He's got that already. He's just got that perception that he
You
will
feel it,
run
don't
his
you?
bloody socks off, won't he?
Yeah, you
And
feel it.
Souček as well. I think Souček's the same. He'll
Yeah,
run his bloody socks off, and I think that's
yeah,
all we want is a player who can give you a chance as well.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
you're right. You know, before not always been the case with signings and stuff, but they both come in. And you're thinking, you know, this is two solid players, and I think they're going to. You know, yeah, obviously someone like Bowen, I think, you know, he was young, hungry, British strike, you know, British winger, very similar to, I got the same amount of excitement when Ashton came in, you know, he was that sort of person.
yeah,
I think that's sort of where we need to be aiming for, I think, you know, because
absolutely.
these guys
Yeah,
getting built up and we'll get a team again. And yeah, I know what you mean about the passion and stuff. But yeah, we all like to win. But you're
yeah.
right. It's like we know, but the thing is, we know we're not going to win the title. We a good cup run. That's what we like.
A good cup run is what we'd like to have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
40 points, nice and early,
The,
sort of February,
the
March.
irony, the irony, our better seasons, I mean, not that I wish it, but our better seasons have been when we've been fighting for something, when we've been in the
Yeah,
championship, for example,
yeah.
fighting for promotion. And we've had some great seasons when we've been in the division down, you know, and you see the absolute determination. And I think we're the kind of team that we go up and because we know we're not going to win the league, I think we become a little bit complacent. Oh, if we sit comfortably in the mid-table, but that's where the complacency starts to get you into trouble.
Sure, yeah.
And then you all of a sudden you're fighting relegation more than you're trying to fight for, you know, a European position and stuff like that. And that mentality, you know, needs to change. And like you just said, with players like Bowen in now, I think maybe that might be the turning point for us.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed. I think we'll survive. We
I,
better do.
I've got no doubt. I've got no doubt we'll survive. I think it's horrible what's happened in the world, and you know we can't, you know, everyone knows it, you know. But I think for us, going back to empty stadiums and stuff, fighting relegation, you know, it's up to the players now, isn't it? So it's not so that no one can say, "Oh, the fans were getting on our backs," or or we were given, you know. It's up to the players. They haven't got that pressure, and I think that'll make a big difference. And I think what will happen is you're right about complacency. I think you're going to end up those sort of middle tier teams. They're going to be complacent because some of them will be on the beach already, and you know we already know. Like it came out the other day about what's his face, Ryan Fraser's not going to be signing a new contract for Bournemouth. So they're one of our major sort of so
down there,
you're going to get lots of those, and you're going to get some more like Newcastle. I think they're going to get dragged in, and it's going to be crazy basically. It's gonna be a crazy
I agree.
set of results, and still we'll have something to moan about then. At least you'll have some more content to talk about on Irons United, so that'd be all good.
Well, we'd like you to come on. I don't know if Anton's spoken to you about it, but
I'll be on. I'm going to come on definitely, and give my views.
Excellent.
Brilliant. And Stelios, it's been great chatting to you, man. It's been really good.
Thank you. Thank you. Been a pleasure.
Thank you. And obviously, thank you to everyone for watching. You know, the standard thing, like, share, subscribe, you know, comment. Got any suggestions of people you want me to try and get on the channel, give us a shout as well. Obviously, all the love, support, tweets, messages, I read everyone, appreciate everyone. It's really overwhelming at times. And from me and Stelios, take care, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye.